What if everything you thought you knew about rimfire ammunition was wrong? Most shooters assume the fastest cartridge automatically causes the most devastating damage, but today's test may completely change that belief. 4 of the most popular rimfire cartridges will face the exact same challenge, fired from the same distance, at the same target, under identical conditions. No opinions, no internet arguments, just real results. As the impacts unfold, one cartridge delivers a result I never expected, and by the end of this experiment, the biggest surprise doesn't happen first. It happens with the very last shot, and you probably won't see it coming. Before we fire a single shot, let's make one thing clear. This experiment is not about which cartridge looks the most impressive on a specification sheet or which one has the highest advertised velocity. Today is about real-world performance. We're comparing 4 of the most popular rimfire cartridges: the .22 long rifle, the .7 Mach-E, the .7 HMR, and the .22 Magnum. Each one has earned a loyal following, and each claims to offer unique advantages. But numbers on a box don't always tell the whole story. The only way to settle the debate is to put every cartridge through the exact same test, under the exact same conditions, and let the results speak for themselves. By the end of this comparison, we'll discover not just which round is the fastest or most powerful on paper, but which one delivers the most effective terminal performance when it truly matters. At first glance, this may look like an ordinary ballistic target, but there's much more hidden beneath the surface. This ballistic rabbit isn't simply made of clear gel. Inside, you'll find a simulated skeletal structure surrounded by soft tissue cavities, carefully designed to create resistance that more closely resembles a realistic impact. Instead of watching bullets pass through a uniform block of gelatin, we'll see how they interact with multiple layers of material, changing the way they expand, fragment, and transfer energy. That's exactly what makes today's test so interesting. Every shot has the potential to produce a completely different result depending on where the bullet strikes, how it reacts after impact, and how efficiently it delivers its energy through the target. By looking beyond the surface and examining the internal damage after every shot, we'll gain a much clearer understanding of how each cartridge truly performs under the same conditions. Now that you know what we're testing, it's time to explain how this challenge will work. To make the comparison as fair as possible, every cartridge will be fired under the same conditions, from the same distance, and at the same type of target. The only thing that changes is the cartridge and the ammunition itself. The test is divided into 3 official rounds, each designed to reveal a different aspect of terminal performance. In round 1, we'll aim for the chest to evaluate overall expansion, penetration, and energy transfer. Round 2 shifts to the rear of the target, creating a more demanding path through additional tissue and simulated bone, allowing us to see which cartridges maintain their performance when resistance increases. Finally, round 3 moves to the head, where high-speed expansion, fragmentation, and immediate energy transfer become the most important factors. This is where the slow-motion footage should reveal the biggest differences between each cartridge. But even after those 3 rounds are complete, the experiment won't be over. At the very end of the video, we'll bring back the top performers for one final bonus round, a sudden death finish designed to settle the debate once and for all. If you've already picked a favorite, don't get too confident yet. because, based on what we've seen so far, there's a very good chance the final results will completely change your expectations. The real comparison begins now. Round 1 focuses on center chest impacts, giving every cartridge the same opportunity to demonstrate its balance of expansion, penetration, and energy transfer. We'll start with the .22 long rifle, firing a 32-grain CI Stinger hollow point with an advertised velocity of 1,640 feet per second. On paper, it offers excellent speed for a .22 LR, and I expect it to expand quickly while producing moderate penetration. Let's find out. In slow motion, the impact looks impressive, and after inspecting the target, we can clearly see the entrance wound, the exit wound, and signs that the bullet struck bone before exiting. That's a solid opening performance. For this round, I would score it 4 out of 5 stars for damage, 3 out of 5 for penetration, and 4 out of 5 for overall shock effect. As the first competitor, the .22 LR takes the early lead on our scoreboard. Next up is the .17 Max E, loaded with a 17-grain VMAX ballistic tip, traveling at approximately 2,010 feet per second. Despite its lighter bullet, its significantly higher velocity should create rapid fragmentation and a violent energy transfer near the point of impact. My prediction is that it will create more internal damage than the .22 LRR, but it may sacrifice penetration in the process. The slow-motion replay immediately shows a more explosive initial impact. Examining the target reveals a clean entrance, noticeable fragmentation inside the wound channel, and a successful exit. Compared to the previous shot, this cartridge appears more aggressive internally. Although the overall penetration remains similar, it earns 4.5 stars for damage, 3 stars for penetration, and 4.5 stars for shock. The scoreboard tightens, and the .17 Mac E briefly moves into first place. Our third contender is the .22 Magnum, firing a 30-grain Hornady VMAX bullet at an advertised velocity of roughly 2,200 feet per second. Many shooters expect this cartridge to dominate thanks to its combination of higher velocity and increased energy. Personally, I think this will produce the largest overall wound so far. The slow-motion footage confirms a noticeably harder impact, and the target reacts with far more force than either of the previous cartridges. Looking closer, the entrance wound is clean, while the exit shows considerably more disruption, although perhaps not quite as dramatic as expected. Even so, the overall damage is substantial. I would award this cartridge 5 stars for damage, 4 stars for penetration, and 5 stars for shock effect. With that performance, the .22 Magnum climbs to the top of the leaderboard. The final cartridge in this round is the .17 HMR, using a 17-grain Hornady VMAX bullet traveling at an impressive advertised velocity of approximately 2,550 feet per second. On paper, this is the fastest cartridge in today's lineup, and many people would assume it will produce the most devastating result. My prediction is that its extreme velocity will create exceptional fragmentation and possibly the largest exit wound of the round. As the shot breaks, the slow-motion replay captures an incredibly violent impact. Upon inspection, the entrance appears almost identical to the others, but inside the target, extensive fragmentation is immediately visible. The exit wound is the largest we've seen so far, with scattered lead fragments confirming significant energy transfer. This performance earns 5 stars for damage, 4 stars for penetration, and 5 stars for shock. After the first official round, the competition is already much closer than expected. The .17 HMR narrowly takes the lead. The .22 Magnum remains close behind, while the .17 Mackay 22 long rifle continue to prove they are far more capable than many shooters give them credit for. But this is only the beginning, and the next round may completely reshape the standings. This is the moment we've all been waiting for. The scoreboard is closer than anyone expected, and now everything comes down to one final official round. Headshots place every cartridge under the most demanding conditions of today's experiment. Expansion happens almost instantly, fragmentation becomes far more violent, and every fraction of a second is captured in slow motion. From this point forward, going to let the footage do most of the talking. Watch carefully, pay attention to the entry point, the immediate reaction, and how each bullet transfers its energy. Sometimes the smallest difference in bullet design creates the biggest difference on impact. We begin with the .22 long rifle loaded with the Aguila Super Maximum 30-grain hollow point, leaving the muzzle at roughly 1,700 feet per second. I expected an aggressive impact, but I wasn't sure whether it would compete with the larger cartridges, the shot breaks, and everything slows down. Replay. Zoom in. Frame by frame. The bullet strikes the front of the target, producing an immediate burst of energy. The entrance remains relatively small, but the exit tells a completely different story. For a .22 LRR, the amount of visible disruption is impressive, easily exceeding what many people would expect from this cartridge. It delivers a surprisingly strong opening performance for the final round. Next is the 17 Mach E with the 17-grain Vent projectile, specifically designed with an extremely thin jacket to encourage rapid fragmentation. On paper, this should produce one of the fastest energy dumps in the entire lineup. The shot lands cleanly. Replay. Slow it down again. Zoom even closer. Instead of a dramatic exit, most of the action happens inside the target. Tiny fragments spread rapidly through the wound channel, creating extensive internal disruption while leaving a more controlled exit than anticipated. It isn't the spectacular explosion many viewers might expect, but the frame-by-frame replay reveals exactly where the bullet released nearly all of its energy. Sometimes the most impressive damage isn't immediately visible from the outside. Now it's time for the .22 Magnum, firing the 30-grain TNT hollow point at approximately 2,200 feet per second. This is one of the cartridges I've been waiting for all day. The trigger breaks, and the reaction is immediate. Replay. Slow motion. Zoom in tighter. Frame by frame, the bullet impacts with tremendous force, opening the target almost instantly. The amount of visible destruction is on another level, and even before examining the damage closely, it's obvious that this cartridge transfers an enormous amount of energy in the first few inches. Looking at the replay again only confirms it. The impact is violent. The wound cavity expands rapidly, and the overall effect easily becomes one of the most dramatic moments of the entire experiment. Finally, the last official shot belongs to the 17 HMR loaded with the 17-grain TNT hollow point at an advertised velocity of roughly 2,550 feet per second. Everything comes down to this. If any cartridge can challenge the performance we just witnessed, this is it. The shot echoes, and the camera captures every millisecond. Replay, slow motion, zoom, frame by frame. The bullet strikes almost exactly where intended, producing rapid fragmentation throughout the target. The damage is extensive, with fragments scattering through the wound channel almost immediately. The visual effect is spectacular, but comparing the replay side by side with the .22 Magnum reveals something unexpected. While the .17 HMR delivers incredible speed and fragmentation, the heavier .22 Magnum appears to create slightly greater overall disruption. It's an incredibly close finish, and for the first time today, the answer isn't as obvious as many people expected. The official test is over, but I'm still not completely satisfied. Every cartridge has shown its strengths, and everyone has exposed at least one weakness. The scoreboard is incredibly close, making it difficult to declare a clear winner based solely on the 3 previous rounds. So instead of ending the experiment here, we're going to settle the debate with one final challenge. Think about it for a second. If you could carry only one of these 4 rimfire cartridges, which one would you trust the most? Is it the lightning-fast .17 HMR, the consistently powerful .22 Magnum? Or could one of the smaller cartridges surprise us one last time? Before the next shot, pause the video and make your final prediction. For this sudden death round, we're bringing back the 2 strongest performers from today's testing. Both cartridges will face the exact same target from the exact same distance under identical conditions. There are no more categories, no separate scores, and no second chances. This is a direct head-to-head comparison where only the overall performance matters. The first shot breaks, and the target reacts immediately. Replay, slow motion, frame by frame. The bullet produces a massive energy transfer, creating an impressive wound cavity with excellent penetration. It's exactly the kind of performance you would expect from a top contender. Now comes the final shot of the entire experiment. Everything depends on this moment. The second cartridge is loaded, the crosshairs settle, and the trigger breaks. Replay, zoom in, frame by frame. At first glance, the impact looks nearly identical, but looking closer reveals subtle differences. One cartridge creates a wider wound channel almost instantly, while the other carries more momentum through the target before releasing its energy. Side by side, the slow-motion footage makes those differences impossible to ignore. This is no longer about which cartridge is faster or which one generates the highest muzzle energy. It's about which one delivers the most complete performance from impact to exit. After reviewing every replay and comparing every round of today's experiment, I've made my decision. The winner isn't necessarily the cartridge I expected before filming began, and it probably isn't the one many viewers predicted either. That's exactly why real-world testing matters. Specifications, velocity charts, and online debates can point you in one direction, but controlled testing often tells a very different story. Today's sudden death round doesn't just crown a winner, it proves that the smallest differences in bullet design, weight, and construction can completely change the outcome. And that's the biggest lesson from this entire experiment. After reviewing every slow-motion replay, every entrance and exit wound, every fragment pattern, and every point scored throughout today's challenge, it's finally time to reveal the final rankings. This isn't based on a single impressive shot or one dramatic moment. Every cartridge has been evaluated across all 3 official rounds, plus the sudden death bonus challenge. Expansion, penetration, consistency, fragmentation, and overall energy transfer all contributed to the final results. If your favorite cartridge isn't at the top, don't worry. The margins between these competitors were much closer than many people expected. Coming in at fourth place is the .22 long rifle. Despite finishing last in today's rankings, it deserves far more credit than its position suggests. Throughout the test, it consistently exceeded expectations, delivering reliable penetration and respectable damage, while remaining the most affordable and widely available cartridge in the group. It simply couldn't match the additional speed and energy offered by the other three contenders. Taking third place is the .17 Mach-E. This cartridge impressed us with its remarkable velocity and aggressive fragmentation, especially during the chest and headshot tests. However, its lighter projectile occasionally gave up penetration in exchange for rapid energy transfer. While it produced some spectacular internal damage, its overall consistency across every challenge fell just short of the top two competitors. In second place, we have the .17 HMR going into today's experiment. Many people would have predicted this cartridge to finish first. Its exceptional velocity produced violent fragmentation and some of the largest wound cavities we observed. It performed extremely well throughout every stage of the test, but when all the footage was reviewed side by side, one small detail kept it from claiming the top spot. In the most demanding scenarios, it sometimes sacrificed retained energy for explosive expansion that leaves only one cartridge standing. Taking first place is the .2T2 Magnum. It may not have been the fastest cartridge in today's lineup, but it consistently delivered the best overall balance of expansion, penetration, retained energy, and visible damage across every stage of the experiment, whether striking the chest, driving through the more demanding rear shot test, or producing dramatic results during the final headshot challenge. It repeatedly demonstrated why raw velocity isn't the only factor that matters. Today's winner wasn't determined by a single spectacular impact. It earned the top position by performing exceptionally well from beginning to end, proving that consistency often beats extremes when every shot counts. Before filming this experiment, I honestly believed I already knew how it would end. If you had handed me nothing but the specifications, the advertised velocities, and the muzzle energy figures, I would have picked a different winner without hesitation, and that's exactly why this test was worth doing. Numbers can tell you how fast a bullet leaves the barrel, but they can't fully predict what happens after impact. Bullet construction, weight retention, expansion, and fragmentation all play a critical role, and today's results proved that in the most convincing way possible. The cartridge that looked unbeatable on paper wasn't the one that impressed me the most when every shot was analyzed side by side. Sometimes, the smallest engineering differences create the biggest real-world results. If you made your prediction before the first shot, there's a good chance you were just as surprised as I was. That's the value of controlled testing. It replaces assumptions with evidence and turns opinions into measurable results. If you came into this video believing that the fastest bullet would always produce the most devastating results, today we've demonstrated that the reality is far more complicated. Velocity is only one piece of the equation. Throughout these tests, we saw lighter projectiles fragment almost instantly, heavier bullets retain momentum, and different bullet designs completely change what happened after impact. Some cartridges exceeded expectations, while others reminded us that impressive numbers on a box don't always translate into the strongest overall performance. That's exactly why controlled testing matters. It allows us to move beyond assumptions and compare every round under the same conditions, revealing differences that are impossible to see from specifications alone. Of course, today's experiment only focused on 4 popular rimfire cartridges. There are many more calibers, bullet weights, and projectile designs that deserve the same side-by-side treatment. What happens when we move into larger centerfire cartridges? Will higher energy finally become the deciding factor, or will bullet construction once again change the outcome? Those are questions worth testing, not guessing, and that's exactly where this series could go next. If this video reaches the support it deserves, the next experiment will be even bigger. We'll step up to more powerful calibers, tougher targets, higher speed cameras, and even more detailed slow-motion analysis to see whether the same patterns continue or whether everything we learned today gets turned upside down. Because in ballistic testing, every new experiment has the potential to challenge what we think we already know.